Hugh Hewitt. I got a big show for you today. Coming up, Jonathan Shanzer, Ben Tableau from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy, Eliana Johnson from the Washington Free Beacon, Jim Talent, Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan, so much more. But I start with the indispensable Jim Garrity, Washington Post columnist, senior political writer for National Review. He writes every morning the Morning Jolt, which you ought to be getting and reading. Jim will cover the breaking news of Kristi Noem being fired and Markwayne Mullin being named after I get your first assessment of how the war with Iran is going, because that is the big story of the day. And we're 5 days in. By the end of the show, something terrible could happen. But right now, 6 Americans have been killed, and Iran's getting the living daylights knocked out of them. What do you think?
Hugh, the last time we talked, the war had not yet begun, and I was reminding your listeners of Trump's Truth Social statement that help was on its way. I believe 46 days passed between that statement on Truth Social and the actual beginning of bombing. In the interim, a lot of the Iranian regime managed to kill a lot of protesters, and I was frustrated by it. It came late, but when it came in just phenomenal numbers, and the performance of the military has just been superlative in terms of the precision, in terms of the scale of the scope, the sheer integration with our Israeli allies, and the use of Israeli intelligence has just been fascinating. And I went, today's Morning Jolt, I kind of went through all the numbers. Before the conflict, Iran had the 13th largest military in the world. Whether there was a little bit of hyperbole in Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's comments yesterday when he said the Iranian Navy has been destroyed, the Iranian Air Force has been destroyed, they're a shadow of their former selves. And in fact, just this afternoon, another Iranian warship went into port at Sri Lanka and basically said, we're out. We're not leaving port for the remainder of the conflict. We have no interest in joining that other ship at the bottom of the ocean. It's been phenomenal. And, we've been through at least one Ayatollah, possibly two. It's kind of hard to see because they cycle through them so fast. The Iranian regime is never going to be the same from this. I know the job is not done. I really want to see the Iranian regime utterly complete. If we end up in a Venezuela type situation where we leave the runner-up or the right-hand man of the old leader in charge, it's not going to be conducive to our long-term interests. But, kudos to the president for taking action that really no Democratic, even those alleged neocon warmongers, Bush and Cheney, never did something like this. And I think that
now I've got 2 people coming up, Ben Tableau of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and I often talk to Kareem Sajapur when I'm in town, sometimes on the radio. They've both been very public. Don't arm the Kurds. Don't let the country fall into civil war. What's your thought on that? Because, obviously we would like the regular Iranian army to turn on the IRGC, kill them all, and hold elections. But that's, and I'd also like a unicorn. That's not going to happen. What's the best result right now?
The wariness of arming the Kurds is well placed and justified. It's been a long while since I've been in Turkey, but Iran has fired just about everything and everybody. They have not. There's one missile that got shot down over Turkey. There's debate about whether it was headed towards Incirlik. But by and large, Iran has not fired directly at Turkey. This is because they share a border. Turkey has about 1 million men when you throw in the reserves. They have a NATO-trained first-class army and very good drones. So if the Iranians have no capacity to pick a fight with the Turks right now. One area, though, that where Iran and Turkey do have shared interests is the fact that they both have Kurds on their territory. Kurdistan, if it existed as a country and included the ethnic Kurds, would kind of be overlap in the borders of both of them. And neither the Turks nor the Iranians want to see an independent Kurdistan get formed. The northern third of Iraq it's not an independent country, but it's got a great deal of autonomy in how it runs with Iraq. And I believe a little bit of Syria, too, has a bit of the Kurds. I understand the U.S. wants to we're doing everything without a ground force right now. And there's an argument, we've seen the limits of air power. You can't remove a regime from power without somebody on the ground fighting there. I do, however, think that this would be opening up a can of worms. This would be all of a sudden, Turkey would no longer be neutral to, supportive of our operations. I think they would be deeply concerned by this.
All
I
right,
think
now I
every
want to
other,
switch, Jim. I got to have enough
sure,
time to switch because
sure.
you are the father of a couple of robot geeks, and
Yeah.
they're in high school. When I was in high school, Saigon fell, and the helicopter leaving the embassy happened when I was a freshman in college. When you were in high school, I'll bet you 1991 happened, the first Desert Gulf War, and we were unstoppable. Other people have come of age during disasters or maybe mixed messages. Your boys are in high school and they're seeing this. What do they think?
Well, I should point out my older one is in college, and apparently, when you go to a tech school, nobody pays attention to current events. Nobody, and so
Oh,
yeah, like this is not, at least as of like this weekend.
but it's all
Following home.
robots. It's all
Yeah,
drones.
in high school, there's been some talk with my younger one. But my sense, like each year, I kind of there's this argument. Fewer, the number of Americans who serve in the military is very small. The number of Americans who are veterans, so the number of Americans who can go through their day and don't have a relative, don't have a friend, don't have someone else who served in the military in some capacity, and who can spend their day thinking about the Kardashians or Mr. Beast or something else that's completely alien to you and I. Unfortunately, like, I don't feel like the country is at war. Now, some of that is because, knocking on wood, and you said, by the time people hear this, things could go wrong. That there was the shooting in Austin, and otherwise, we have not seen any activated Iranian sleeper cells or other acts of terrorism on the U.S. home front. So that's, that's good news. But I think it also adds to this sense that this is a war that's happening far away. Also, very thankfully, we've had great fear of casualties in a war like this. And last I checked, we still only have 6. In a perfect world, that's 6 too many, and we're going to mourn every last one of those heroes. But I think if you don't want to pay attention to this war, you have that option in a way that was not possible. Certainly, like not that I remember in the Persian Gulf, during Vietnam, or even post 9/11 or Iraq, where like that was wall to wall, 24/7, every cable channel. This was the story. Now, life goes on. I don't begrudge people talking about the Texas primaries or other issues or things like that, but I do kind of feel like it's strangely quiet for us to have begun what effectively amounts to a regime change war against an enemy in our lives since the Iranian hostage crisis.
So, for my whole adult life, I want to finish with this. Given how serious the foe is, and Iran is the octopus of terror, I am very glad that Mark Wayne Mullen is going to DHS because I think he's a serious man. And I'm not sure that the former governor of South Dakota, had the management chops to run DHS with 260,000 employees. They haven't even finished the wall yet.
Yeah. So first of all, let's point out that, like, when people are looking for potential Iranian sleeper agents, sleeper cells, stuff like that, the FBI and everybody who's under Department of Justice is getting paid, but anybody who's part of DHS is not getting paid. And I don't know about you, Hugh, but I really feel like if you're trying to catch terrorists, I'd like you to get paid. It seems like literally the least we could do is make sure you get paid on time. Christy Noem, I wrote in the Morning Jolt back, in January, that she was the biggest liability of the Trump administration. I don't think she brought a lot to the table. I think she kept, this was after the Minnesota shootings when she went out and gave a briefing that was like full of false information. Apparently, it was the ad campaign that Kennedy asked her about. And I should give a shout out to my colleague, Audrey Fahlberg, who had first reported that Trump was just fed up with Christy
I didn't
Noem.
know that. Tell me the name again.
Christy Noem, my colleague Audrey, is a walking
nonstop. I heard Audrey on
the
the podcast. Yeah.
Yes.
Stay off of the podcast with her. She's smarter than everyone.
The Jay Jones story last fall. Like but anyway, but it's not exactly surprising. Christy Noem had not been hitting it out of the park. You're playing the video, and I'm just kind of observing. Like, she always seemed to be in front of a camera. She always seemed to be wearing some uniform or outfit or something. The moment Tom Homan stepped into Minneapolis, you notice things seemed to get better. Cooperation from state and local law enforcement seemed to improve. She's a governor. She's not in law enforcement, and she always seemed like a bit of a strange pick. I know Hugh, people thought Christy Noem would be with this administration until the last dog dies, but it's not turned out to be the case.
Yeah, Garrity, you had missed your weekly quotient of bad jokes. It's sort of like a given that there's going to be a bad Garrity joke. Were you bad on your boys? Were you like Mr. Dad Joke on the Neighborhood Watch?
Hugh, the whole reason I became a father is to tell dad jokes.
The dad joke, I thought so. Garrity, read them in the Washington Post. Read them in the National Review. Listen to the Three Martini Lunch. Listen to the editor's podcast and get the morning jolt. I don't know. What time do you get up to write that thing?
I'm in front of my computer about 6:45 a.m. Eastern. I try to send it off to the editors by 9. If it's
Well,
after
well
that, something's gone
done.
wrong.
Every day. Well done. Thank you, Jim Garrity. Follow him on X at Jim Garrity. Every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I begin my morning with Jonathan Shanzer, who does the FDD morning brief. I always learn how long the war's been going on because Jonathan always begins with how many days it's been since 10/7. Jonathan, you also are a numbers guy. How many launchers have been destroyed? What is the estimate of how many are left in the Iranian arsenal?
This is not exactly something that the Iranians are publicizing. What we saw a couple days ago is that 300 were destroyed. Right now, we're thinking about 400. That's probably 2/3 of the total launchers. And then on top of that, we're hearing that the total amount of launches by the Iranian regime have dropped by something like 80%. So the dwindling ability of the regime is what we're looking at. Certainly, I think a lot of that tracks back to the launchers themselves. You can't get those missiles up in the air without the mobile launchers or the static ones. And so what's happening right now is this is just a hunting expedition. The US and the Israelis have complete and total dominance in the skies over Iran. They have full control over that airspace. And so now they're just going around looking for the next missile that's been pulled out of a silo in the hope of destroying it before it can hit Kuwait, for example, or Azerbaijan or Turkey.
Jonathan, I'm sure you remember the video that the IRGC released last year of the guy who looked like the old guy from Iraq who said, nothing wrong here, driving around in a Jeep in the missile caves. Can we penetrate those caves? Are they blowing up all over the country?
So right now, yes, first of all, it's hard to forget Baghdad Bob, as we called him.
Yes.
From Iraq. I think the guy's name was Tariq Aziz, if I'm remembering it correctly. But yeah, the regime tried to, I think convey last year that they had this impenetrable capability. My understanding is that the United States has actually started to target these with some of the heavier munitions that we have. How many we've struck, I don't know. The battle damage assessment, or the BDA, right? We get these on a somewhat regular basis now from the Pentagon. It's going to take a little bit of time, I think, for all of the information to come out. But look, I think that the core takeaway here is that the military component of this is going incredibly well. Full integration with the Israeli military and the American military, the intelligence sharing, you can tell that the leaders of these two countries are in full sync. All of that, I think, is very positive. The question to my mind right now is, the Arab states, do they get wobbly? Because they've started to sustain strikes and it looks like some serious damage. I think that's a concern. And then also the unity among the Iranian people. And that's been kind of a black box, right? We just don't know what's happening on the ground right now. Are the people of Iran going to pull together and fight this regime? I think that's something we'll be hearing about within the next week or two, as I hope anyway, the kinetic operations start to slow.
Jonathan, your colleague Ben Talablu will be on next hour, and I want him on to talk about the one story out there of concern to me, that we are arming the Kurds in order to start an insurrection, which Benham and Karim Sajapur from Carnegie, the two guys who know the most about Iran that I know, other than Norm Rule, both said, bad idea, don't do that. What do you think? Is that a bad idea?
Look, here's what everybody needs to understand. Is that you have the kind of the core of Iran. These are the Persian, the Persians, right? The Iranians, the non-minorities, right? And when you talk about Iran, you're talking about minorities like the Arabs and the Baluch and the Uzbeks, and I mean there is like a patchwork of minorities. The majority of Iranians want to be able to liberate their country by themselves, for themselves. And when you start injecting Kurdish nationalism into the equation, people start to get nervous. They start to worry about the balkanization of Iran. And that's why you're going to hear Iranians say that it's a bad idea. Now, I can understand why Americans might like this idea that, hey, we're not going to put boots on the ground. We're going to fight by proxy, and we can use people that are interested in doing this and are not asking for anything in return. The key is, are they actually really not asking for anything in return? Or are they going to say, hey, I fought and now I want a Kurdistan of my own? And that's going to set off the Iranians. It's going to set off the Turks. This is just this is complexity that we don't necessarily need right now and could be an unforced error on the part of the Trump administration. I hope they're hearing this from Iranians, and I hope they're moving slowly right now. It's not to say that we can't. It's just a question of, is this advisable at this stage in the operation? Is this a good thing? So I'm not surprised to hear some of our Iranian friends warning against it.
Another you're a fount of information. I appreciate it every time you do the morning brief. Early on, I saw pictures of Iron Beam. Now I've come not to believe anything I see because of AI and old videos being repurposed with new lower thirds. Has Iron Beam been deployed? Is it working?
My understanding is that it is usable, but I don't think that it is reliable. And there's a big difference, right? When you've got a battle ongoing, are you going to use something that is tried and true and tested, like Iron Dome for the short-range missiles, Arrow 3 for the long-range missiles? These are the Israeli systems that have saved countless lives. And so, as I understand it, Iron Beam, this is the directed energy laser. They want to be able to use it. They want to be able to trot it out, but it's, at this point, as I understand it, not ready for prime time, not yet. But stay tuned, because if the Israelis continue to make strides in this space, this will be important for the United States too. The Israelis may be breaking ground on the kinds of tech that we're going to need to be able to defend our skies or to defend the skies of other allies.
Absolutely. Walter Russell Mead made the same point today in a podcast with Dan Senor, that Israeli and American defense technology and capabilities are unmatched around the world. Last question. People on the Hill listen to FDD. Is FDD urging either a supplemental or a reconciliation or just the normal appropriations to restock the shelves which are depleted? And I mean in munitions.
Look, yeah, and look, the Israelis are going to need whatever they can get. And you just got to understand, they have dropped something. I mean, you want to talk about numbers. I believe they have hit 5,500 targets in 6 days. That it is an enormous amount of ordnance that is being dropped right now on this regime. The Israelis are going to need to restock. It looks like they're very likely going to have a knockdown, drag-out battle with Hezbollah in Lebanon, while also fighting the regime in Iran. So I'd like to see whatever the U.S. Congress is able to muster for the Israelis. This is not charity, folks. This is the Israelis fighting side by side with the United States, trying to make the Middle East a sane place again. And I think we're on our way. There's still a lot that can go wrong, but they're going to need, this is how they operate. They operate with American munitions. So if we've got them, we should supply them. They're working with us and for us.
Jonathan Shanzer, always good to talk to you again. Everyone ought to be listening to the morning brief Monday, Wednesday, Friday with Jonathan. I don't know why we don't get Tuesdays, Thursdays. I don't know. I should ask Jonathan.
I'm tired.
I know your time here 5 days a week. Come on, Jonathan, get up and tell me what's going on. Jonathan Shanzer, always good to talk to you, Executive Director of Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. I was on Fox last hour just as word arrived that Kristi Noem was out. Mark Wayne Mullen in at DHS. Here's that clip. Well, I think this is very good for the administration. People forget we're in a war with Iran right now, and the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for those parts of Hezbollah and other terror proxies in the United States that might be organizing some kind of reprisal. It is time for our tough, very tough president to have a very tough guy over at DHS who will take seriously the business of protecting America. Now, Governor Noem, then Secretary Noem, did a good job closing the border, but the border wall is behind. It's not getting built. More important, right now, all eyes on those people who might present a harm to the American people by way of there being extensions of the terror network. So I think Mark Wayne Mullen, very, very well liked within the Senate. He will be easily confirmed. Two traditions in the Senate that will never die: blue slips on district court judges and senators get confirmed. All right, so this is not a question of his getting confirmed. Chris Coons might give you a good quote about how you can't do worse than Kristi Noem. But the fact of the matter, Sanders got confirmed. So he's going to be right through the process. He'll be in charge of DHS in a couple of weeks, and that's very good for this period of time when they don't need controversy. They need seriousness of purpose, especially to the threat inside the United States to the extent it exists from Iran's proxies.
Yeah, the appointment's supposed to take effect on the 31st of this month. I assume that the Senate Majority Leader John Thune will quickly get on board confirmation proceedings in the Homeland Security Committee. One of the things that's going to be on Markwayne Mullin's plate, this is what we originally brought you on to talk about, is this person in Virginia, Abdul Jallo, who had a lengthy criminal record, was repeatedly released and charges dropped by the Commonwealth prosecutor in Fairfax County, a fellow named Steve Descano. And now DHS is concerned that if this guy gets let out again, and he's charged with murder for stabbing a woman at a bus stop. Here's what DHS said about him. Quote, "We are calling on Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger and Virginia sanctuary politicians to commit to not releasing this murderer and violent career criminal from their jail without notifying ICE." So that's going to fall in Markwayne Mullin's lap.
You're right, John. And when I read this story, I was shocked. You know Fairfax County. It's a bedroom community.
Yeah, I live
it's
there.
Herndon. It's Fairfax. People know it. It's not where you expected a 41-year-old mom, Stephanie Minter, to be brutally stabbed to death by a complete stranger. He happens to be in the country illegally. He is a so-called dreamer. He's been here since he was 9. But he's been arrested more than 30 times. But Mr. Descano, who's the publicly elected Fairfax County prosecutor, he won in 2020. He won re-election in 2024. There have been 2 recall attempts with him. Both have failed because it's pretty hard to get people riled up about a county prosecutor. I don't think he's going to win re-election this next time because when you let someone out of jail 30 times, including, by the way, rape, assault, other violent stabbings, they got that woman killed. Now, for the longest time, 21 years, there's been a Supreme Court precedent, City of Castle Rock versus Gonzales, goes back to 2005, that said you can't sue cities when they let bad people, when they don't enforce TROs against bad people. This may be the time to test that precedent and say, Mr. Descano and his staff need to pay this family wrongful death damages because this guy should not have been on the street. He was a known, in fact, the police department, not ICE. ICE had a detainer, should have been honored, but the police department in Fairfax County said, don't let this guy out, and Team Descano still let him out. It's a tragedy. It's also something that Secretary Mullin will look at, and I think will be able to very, very effectively. He's been your guest yesterday, my guest often. He's a very good communicator. He'll be able to communicate what detainers are and when we need to honor
That's
them.
a good point. I mean, you think about the moment that he's stepping into here. As the president formally makes this announcement, naming Senator Markwayne Mullin to be the next Homeland Security Secretary. For anybody jumping in on the news right now, this just in. So, Hugh, tell us about the moment he's stepping into. And, you know, obviously part of this was the president's criticisms or frustrations with how Kristi Noem was handling the job and the tasks that he will have before him.
You know, I think President Trump sometimes doesn't get enough credit for running a very tight ship. He will move the players around when he sees someone is in not the right fit and there's a better fit. And so he thought that Mike Waltz could go up to the UN, and he's done a fabulous job at the UN, and he moves people around. He is loath to give people only 1 or 2 chances. But when the time is right, and when it is obvious that the deal is not getting done and the job is not being done, he will make the switch. He's a developer. He knows how to get stuff done. And he's in the middle of a war, and he really cannot allow his administration to be taken off course by sideshows like this I don't know how much money was spent on that ad campaign. It's the dumbest thing I've seen. And I've seen a lot of dumb things in my career. But so I have seen a lot of dumb things in my career. I've done a lot of dumb things in my career. That ad campaign, that is the dumbest thing. She's on a horse in front of Mount Rushmore. What in the world were they thinking? The question before the House is, can President Donald J. Trump pull off a Goldilocks war? Not too little, like 1991, the Iraq invasion, then not too big, like the 2003 Iraq invasion, but just right with Iran. To answer that, I have Eliana Y. Johnson of the Washington Free Beacon, where she's editor-in-chief. How about it, Eliana? Are you hoping for the Goldilocks turnout, and what will it look like if it happens?
Well, Hugh, I'm hoping for victory. I think that's what all Americans are hoping for. And I would be a fool if I told you I know what that exactly looks like. But when you talk about Goldilocks, I think that is what the president's driving for, where he said this isn't a regime change war. And yet we saw him earlier today weigh in and say, well,
Yes.
the Ayatollah's son is not acceptable to me. We want someone who will bring harmony and peace to Iran. And, Ayatollah 2.0 is not what I'm driving at. And I do want to weigh in on who the successor leader of Iran is. And so I think he is driving at somewhere between the Gulf War, leaving Saddam in power. Obviously, the Ayatollah has already been killed, and having no control over the future of the country.
I don't know if you've seen the picture yet of Doug Burgum with Delcy in Venezuela today.
No.
You think Doug Burgum is going to end up in Tehran standing next to a mullah or an IRGC colonel or an Iranian army general?
I don't think so. I don't think Iran and Venezuela are the same, but I do think there's a world in which the president would love to be received by cheering crowds in Tehran one day. I think this is a legacy play move to him. It's obviously not poll driven, as the majority of the country is against this now, even though a huge majority of MAGA Republicans are for it. And I think what the president's hoping to do is, through action, through victory, change, garner support for this war.
You know, Eliana, I listen to commentary every day, and I listened to Ruthie asking you about the polls this morning. And I don't care about the polls until we're at least a month in, because nobody really knows how they feel until if they hit Dimona tomorrow, it's a disaster. If we leave the IRGC in command and they mow down 50,000 Iranians, it's not a good thing. We just don't know, but it looks good for 5 days.
I agree with you, Hugh. Things look good right now, and I don't want to be governed by a president who's making decisions about national security and where to strike and whether to strike based on scrutinizing poll numbers and looking at the next election. I want a president doing what I think this president is doing right now, which is I'll distinguish why he did this at all versus why he took this opportunity when he did it. But he took an opportunity when he had it, regardless of what the polls said. And I think that's wise.
Let me divert for a moment, Eliana. I do not talk about other podcasters who engage in stuff I don't like because I don't want to draw attention to them. I'm making an exception with you because you may have had Chabad at Yale. I don't know if you did. Chabad is a fine organization. It's on most campuses. They were the target of the Mumbai terror attack. They were the target of the Bondi Beach terror attack. They are always a target because Chabad is very public about where there's a Chabad house. Tucker went after Chabad yesterday, and I want him to take it down. Are you shocked by that?
I have to say, Hugh, I've not listened to this at length. I've seen, maybe as you have, clips on this episode. I was surprised to see it, and I think it's important for people to know that this is an organization that supports Jews and Jewish life. And so to get the facts out there about it, which is that's the beginning of the end, an end of why this organization exists.
And that's it. And they support Jews everywhere around the world, and I just don't want to put a target on their back. And so I hope he takes it down. Let me move back to the war with you.
The other thing, Hugh, is
that
I would add to this is there may be an aspect of this where things need to get worse before they get better, where we will see increasingly unhinged conspiracy theories. I saw Candace Owens weighing in, praising that and talking about, Jews trying to have her murdered and so on. It may be that we need to spin off into those increasingly unhinged territory for all of this to get reined back in eventually.
Yeah, it broke my back. I've just ignored this stuff because it's been around forever. It's been in the water forever.
And by the way,
the
the president has now weighed in as well, I would note. And his comment to Jonathan Karl of ABC News was, that Tucker has lost his way. I knew that a long time ago. He's not MAGA. MAGA's saving our country. MAGA's America first. Tucker's none of those things. Tucker is really not smart enough to understand that. And look, those two could be friends again in 6 months. Nothing's permanent with the president, but obviously the president is standing with the state of Israel right now, key partners in this war, and with the Jewish people as he has since 2016.
And Tucker can come back to normalcy. That's also possible. Let me ask you about whether or not you think that Congress is going to move rapidly or take its time to replenish the munitions stock, both for America and Israel. They could do that with a reconciliation in a week. You need Budget Committee, an Appropriating Committee, and Armed Services Committee in both Senate and House to get together to do that. But they could move quickly if they want to, or they could wait and do a supplemental, which takes longer, or they could wait for normal appropriation. I think they ought to go fast. What do you think, Eliana?
Of course, I agree with you, Hugh, and I think we should hear from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth on this, screaming from the rooftops until it gets done, as well as the president. Top national priority right now. And it's worth noting that it's wonderful to see the new weapons of war used here, powered by artificial intelligence, and both by the U.S. and Israel. It's fantastic. It's been hugely successful.
If you listen to Dan Senor today, Walter Russell Mead says it's incredible how advanced Israeli and American defense technology and capabilities are. The world's going to want to buy our stuff. That's what it comes down to. They're not going to want Chinese stuff. They're going to want our stuff.
Beyond that, what the world is watching vis-a-vis Russia and China is those two countries stand on the sidelines as their ally in Iran is attacked. Well, America and Israel operate together. It makes America an attractive ally, and it makes Russia and Iran unattractive and unreliable partners. And I think that's being broadcast to the world right now.
Superb point. Eliana Y. Johnson on X, reader at the Free Beacon, and of course listen to her on the Commentary podcast most mornings. Thank you, Eliana. We've had amazing guests today already. Garrity, Eliana Johnson, Jonathan Chandler. If you missed any of it, you could have been watching TV. All right, you can watch the Salem News Channel and connected TVs via the Samsung TV Plus. That's channel 1177 on Pluto TV and more coming all the time. Salem News Channel keeps getting bigger and better, always better and better. So please give it a watch. You can also, if you missed any particular interview, it's over at my YouTube channel, Hugh Hewitt, and YouTube. Let me tell you about the people who keep us on the air. AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172. AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172. Market's having a wretched day. All right, it was down 1,000 points when I looked earlier, and I'll look right now, just so I'm not sometimes bad days and on up switches, but I don't pay much attention during a war because a war isn't a really good time to invest or to divest. Dow's down 1.66%, S&P down 0.62, NASDAQ down 0.34. That's not really awful. The 10-year Treasury is at 4.132, so you're still in the sixes to get your new home, but you can't wait around. We've been in the sixes for like all of Biden and the first year of Trump because the Fed won't move until they know inflation is beaten. And with oil going up, they may be a little bit hesitant. Oil will be up for as long as the war goes on. I think it's going to go on for a couple of months at least, because they're going to just destroy the missile capacity of Iran and the ability to build more and as much of the IRGC as possible. But call AndrewandTodd.com and ask them when to get a house. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. They do everything. Veterans loans, FHA loans, reverse mortgages for seniors in their own home over the age of 62. They're with Union Home Mortgage. They're the lender. They underwrite the loan. Don't go anywhere else. Go to AndrewandTodd.com. And go to Relief Factor. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I'm back after spending a day with the doctors yesterday. I'm fine. And I went up the Implacable Hill this morning, and I'm fine because of Relief Factor. I carry an curcumin and resveratrol omega every day. I'm just telling you to watch on the Salem News Channel so you can watch me take my Relief Factor every day. That's something you don't see on every TV station very often, but Relief Factor makes it possible for me to broadcast from Studio West, from Studio Beltway, and from Studio North, and I love them. And I love the product. I've taken the product for 13 years. It's the only supplement I have taken for more than 20 years, and I take it because it works. Because I can take 2 days off and then go up the implacable hill. Yeah, I'm muttering under my breath all the way up, but I'm fine. Everything is good. I check out. I'm all in great shape. But I still got to get up and down that hill. It sits there on my morning consciousness. If I don't do it, I feel guilty. But I know I have no excuse because I took my relief factor and I won't feel bad. I won't have any minor aches and pains, and I don't. So listen, 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Give it a try. 3-week starter pack, $19.95. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Or go find that starter pack, less than $1 a day for 3 weeks, at their website, relieffactor.com. relieffactor.com. I'm joined now by Behnam Ben Talabou, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Whenever Behnam comes on anywhere, I stop and listen. Behnam, I want to start with the first question. I've heard you raise the alarm about arming the Kurds. Now, to a dummy like me, it sounds like a good idea at first, but then when you and Kareem Sajipour both tell me, bad idea, I listen because I don't know. Would you explain it to my audience why it's a bad idea to arm Kurdish insurgency?
Well, it's always a pleasure to be with you, Hugh, and thank you for the very kind note. Listen, I think President Trump has a level of popularity inside Iran that he even may not know. Yes, I think one of those rapid response Twitter pages reposted an Iranian DJ who was heralding the clip where President Trump was saying that Iran's now former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was dead in an airstrike. But ultimately, even when you look at U.S. allies in Western Europe or around the world, Donald Trump is immensely popular. His Iran policy is immensely popular, and his prosecution of maximum pressure, to include military pressure against Tehran's theocrats, is immensely popular, especially on the backdrop of the most violently suppressed street protests in the history of the Islamic Republic. And therefore, to lose that mass support, it's not about minorities or the center versus the periphery. It's to make sure that you have mass support for the policies that you pursue in that country, and to take note of the fact that sectarian insurgency in the Middle East hasn't traditionally worked. The Kurds are immensely brave people. They've been immensely effective against terror organizations like ISIS, but in those states that they've cohabitated in with many of their Arab friends and brethren and compatriots, they haven't been able to take over the capital. And if that isn't the aim of this sort of an operation, because Iran once in its history, about 100 and some odd years ago, 120 years ago, had various different ethnic groups, but primarily Lurs and Bakhtiaris from the country's south and southwest, kind of take over Tehran, and that was a key part of the constitutional revolution, arming a sectarian insurgency that isn't popular even in the regions that it controls. There are terrain wars and family dynastic conflicts between various factions of Iranian Kurds, as well as within Iraqi Kurds, as well as within several other Kurdish groups. They may have come together in the short term, but that doesn't seem to be the recipe for success, stability, or prosperity in the Middle East, which this president wants, and I would say this president deserves. So while I understand the need for a ground game in Iran, I would say the ground game should be colorblind, if you will. It should be just the masses of anti-regime Iranians, regardless of ethno-linguistic backgrounds. And here, given the fact that from the Women Life Freedom protest to the present, there have been calls from the center or from the periphery to replace the regime, that should give the Trump administration optimism that it has large numbers on its side. And if perhaps the idea of a ground game is needed to be entertained, that might be worth thinking how best to actually use military pressure to drive street protests, because I couldn't think of something else that might impede or retard street protests than Uncle Sam pairing up with an insurgent group and potentially dampening the great amount of goodwill that the president personally has been able to inculcate in Iran policy for many years now. So it's more of an alarm. It's more of a warning bell. And also, the president has been managing things with NATO ally Turkey, which is quite challenging and quite precarious given the multiple fronts, the Syrian front, the Israeli front, and all the other issues where Turkey is making itself manifest these days. It's likely that Turkey is going to get involved in some way if there's a Kurdish insurgency near its border, given the 20+% of Turkey, which is Kurdish, versus the 10 to 12% of Iran, which is reportedly Kurdish. So things can spiral, and this is the Middle East. Things can always get worse, not better. It's hard to see how, whether you're talking about the fears of Balkanization from Iranian nationalism or anything else, it's hard to see how this makes things easier for the president rather than harder. And I think he does deserve a pathway to victory, given the risks he's taken in the Middle East, which no previous president has been willing to take.
Ben, that's a word I want the audience to hear, and we'll put it up on YouTube. I hope everyone sees that, because initial enthusiasm for having someone on the ground gives way to realism about the nature of the regime, and we want the entire Iranian people on our side. I want to ask you about the Goldilocks result. 1991, it was too little. George H.W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Colin Powell stopped after 100 hours. The Marsh Arabs were slaughtered. They didn't go to Baghdad. Turned out to be too little. 2003, too much. We went, we conquered, we stayed. We're still there. There's a civil war. It's a mess. It's been a mess. There weren't any WMD. What's the Goldilocks result here that's just right for a war in the Middle East?
You know what? You may not know it, sir, but you channeled a quote, I think, from former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, who talked about going all in, half in, and none in when he compared what the UK was doing in Iraq versus Libya versus Syria. And he said that the UK had failed everywhere, and he was puzzled as to why. And that's because, with immense respect, I think we're focusing on the tool, which is the nature of military power, the nature of the intervention, the type of internationalism on display. Whereas really we need to understand the relationship between the tool, military force, and the target. It really is about these different kinds of societies. I'm not saying we can't put cases together and learn, because that fundamentally that is political science 101, that is international relations 101. We can learn from previous campaigns. Not every case is sui generis, but sometimes we do have to pay attention to the differences, and sometimes we have to tailor the tool to the target. And the kind of, if one is willing to entertain the costs and the risks associated with military action, then we're going to have to conceive of this first and foremost with respect as a campaign rather than an operation. And it has to be a campaign that paves the pathway for Iranian protesters. And this is costly, it is risky, it is more protracted, and it is bloody. But you cannot tell me that the Middle East is anything but those things right now anyway. I mean, the Islamic Republic of Iran is at war with its neighbors, period. Regardless of orientation, regardless of background. It's firing at Azerbaijan, it's firing at Turkey, it's firing at Arab countries that have oil versus don't have oil, it's firing at US bases, US diplomatic facilities, it's firing at Israeli civilian targets. The Islamic Republic is widening the war against everybody. So I think now more than ever, it's imperative to have a political theory of victory rather than just a military theory of victory. And this is where, history is instructive. Because the Middle East, not just America, not just Israel, not just Iran, but every actor that has existed in the Middle East has had military victory.
Benham, are you old enough to remember Yosemite Sam, a Looney Tunes character?
I remember the cartoon, yes.
Yeah, well, that's what Iran's gone full Yosemite Sam. They're just shooting at everything, but they're not hitting much. Tell me about the numbers. How many launchers are left, and what do you think is the damage done in percentage terms to their missile arsenal, about which you are the expert?
Well, that's very kind of you. There's a lot of other good experts, but I do my best to keep an open source, tab on this kind of stuff, because this is the reason why the Islamic Republic remains a state threat, and this is the rationale for a defanging mission against the regime. This is the region's biggest ballistic missile power. It's clearly using them. It's fired I think over 120 odd ballistic missiles at the UAE alone, for example, but up to 1,000. I want to stress that for the audience. Up to and over 1,000 drones at the UAE alone. I mean, I have to double check the records, but I think the ballistic missile latest tally for March 5th is somewhere between 180 and 190, depending on the source you're using to UAE. Not 120, forgive me, but up to 1,000 plus when it comes to drones. And this is because the regime is feeling the heat as to the success of Israel and America's defanging strategy against missiles and missile launchers, because it's forcing the regime to take its quantitative advantage, which is the missile arsenal, and funnel it through where it has a quantitative shortcoming, which is the missile launchers. You can have 1 million missiles, but if you have only 2 launchers, you can at most only fire 2 at a time, and then you'd be very risk averse because you might lose one. So the logic is to, as the Israelis showed in the 12-day war, go after the arrow go after the archer versus go after the arrow. Rather than defend and pay for costly missile defense systems, go against those who are shooting it. America, now that has entered this war, can do that one step better because it has heavy bombers. So if Israel can target the launcher and America can target the launcher, with the introduction of heavy bombers, America can target the subterranean IRGC bases that house both the launcher as well as the missiles. So think about collapsing the usability of the entire arsenal. And the logic here is to replicate what America did in the 12-day war when it had Operation Midnight Hammer, because it entombed the fissile material. It did not destroy the fissile material. It entombed it in the facility that it destroyed, taking advantage of the natural geography there. So you can make all of those little missile prisms and allow the IRGC not to be able to draw on them to fire at Israel, to fire at America, to fire at the Arabs, or to fire at whoever. So that should be the logic. Reportedly, the regime has upwards of 400 plus ballistic missile launchers. These are basically large trucks that transport, erect, and launch. That's why they're called TELs, T-E-L, transporter, erector, launcher, these various projectiles. We don't have a breakdown as to in which bases they are kept, but Iran has 4 chains of bases. Western chains that are along the Zagros Mountains, central chains in the middle of the country south of the capital, eastern and along the Persian Gulf coastline. And destroying those bases is going to be key to suppressing the fire and defanging the Islamic Republic.
Benham, thank you for joining me. Benham Ben Taleblu is our #1 expert from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy on the Iranian missile threat. I appreciate the time. Vic Mattis joins me, co-host of the Getting Hammered podcast, a brand new one of which just dropped. It's called Boom. It's about the American war with Iran. He and Mary Catherine Ham go over every aspect of it. I got to say, it was arresting, Vic Mattis, to hear you say we wouldn't have gotten to Morocco in World War II if we had the press corps we have now. That's a pretty good line.
Thank you, Hugh. Yeah, that's true. I was looking back into it, and that was Operation Torch. And I think in that process of landing in Morocco and Algeria, the Americans lost 556. And then obviously thousands more who were injured. This isn't even the Kasserine Pass. This isn't even going up the boot of Italy.
We were
forget
awful.
about it. Yeah, no, forget about it. Throw in the towel. It's over. You can have it.
Yeah, but what you made me think, Ernie Pyle is not around today. Now, we had some great war correspondents in 2003, 2001, John Fisher Burns of the New York Times. We had Dexter Filkins of the New Yorker. We don't have any war correspondents because nobody's in Iran or they're out of their mind. But B, they are predisposed to hate this president so much. I wrote a column about this for the Washington Examiner yesterday. They'd rather America lose than Trump triumph. I really think we're at that place.
Yeah, I think that's right, Hugh. You can't help but think that they're secretly rooting for, setbacks. And anytime there's a casualty that's front and center, and Trump acknowledged it, and you and I both know, with an operation this scale, you're going to have casualties, unfortunately. That is the price to pay to eliminate a threat like Iran. This has been, a threat to this country and to the West since 1979. I mean, they've already killed, hundreds, if not thousands, either directly or through its proxies, going into Iraq, if you think about that, going all the way back to the Marine barracks bombing. And something had to be done. But as you mentioned, those on the left in the media, they love skewering the Trump and this administration for any small mistakes and errors and setbacks. And this goes back to even Operation Midnight Hammer, where they thought that, we didn't hit the mark and destroying that nuclear facility. Oh, that's too bad. Trump is wrong again. And then now that we actually go to war against Iran, they said, I don't know why he's going to war. We successfully destroyed the nuclear facilities. So they're trying to have it both ways.
They're broken. A lot of them are broken. And I saw today Barry Weiss, who's now running CBS, hired Aaron McLean from School of War, which is a fine podcast, and brought him over. And I'm thinking, Barry Weiss is thinking, if I want real talent that hasn't been infected by newsroom-itis or TDS, I got to go out and find people from the podcast world who haven't got that. And I don't blame her.
No, and I think it's great that they picked my good friend Aaron McLean, who I've known for many years. In fact,
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. He occupies sometimes he comes by our office and uses the office right behind this wall. So I just saw him this morning and wished him congratulations now that he's a media big shot. But, Aaron was in the Marines. Yeah, Aaron's in the Marines. I really, and he taught at Annapolis. He's one of the smartest people I know, and he's going to make a fantastic war correspondent for CBS, and he's got that great podcast as well, as you mentioned, School of War. My big question is to Aaron: has it opened any doors yet for restaurants? Do you still have to make reservations? I'm waiting for that, and then I can make use of Aaron. So
I want to let you know, Vic. The Salem News Channel, the Salem Radio Network, my podcast does not get you anything. I want you to know that. It doesn't get you a thing. I do want to also ask you, though, in terms of Iran, they've gone full Yosemite Sam. Now, I'm using that on some people who get it and other people who don't. You're old enough to get that, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm getting the Looney Tunes reference to Yosemite Sam. I was going to say, even quite possibly the Tasmanian Devil. I mean, we're going all out. Yeah.
But there was something endearing about the Tasmanian Devil. We didn't like Yosemite Sam.
No, that's true. And he's definitely not Pepe Le Pew. We know how the French are about this at the moment. Again, as Marco Rubio said, they haven't even felt the full brunt of the U.S. force right now. I do have some concerns, obviously, about the depletion of munitions. And we need to ramp up the production of missiles and to resupply the aircraft carrier battle groups. So that's important. But we just saw this amazing video of a U.S. submarine sinking an Iranian frigate. And people are upset about that because that's in international waters, which reminds me, I'm sure the U.S. did that in World War II. If there was a U-boat off the East Coast, I'm sure we just let it go.
They ought not to have declared war on us in 1979 or blown up the Marine Corps barracks in 1983. Let me talk to you a little bit, Vic, about something. It's a complete right turn. It's got nothing to do with anything. I was asked to be on Fox today, so I read up on a story I could not believe. The Fairfax County prosecutor, Mr. Descano, let go a guy more than 30 times who had stabbed, raped, and he murdered a 41-year-old mom at a bus stop. How in the world do they sleep with themselves? How do they get to bed at night when they release violent criminals with detainers?
Again, Hugh, a number of these prosecutors across the country, you mentioned Steve Descano in Fairfax, even in Arlington County, Parisa Degani-Tofty, she's also a Soros-funded prosecutor. As you know, Philadelphia is that way, the same way as well. They really believe this stuff, and it's disturbing because nothing good can come of this. They're being released back onto the streets. And for me, the big question, though, Hugh, is not when will these people realize what they're doing is insane, but when will the voters, let's say the voters in the state of Virginia, realize that enough is enough? What is their threshold? Northern Virginia, as you know, is now heavily Democratic. It's heavily blue. You have a lot of federal workers. They're Doge. They hate Trump. What is their threshold for allowing murderers and rapists back on the street to commit crimes?
Well, what do you think? Does the story travel? Do people know that a guy named Descano let a murderer out 30 times?
Yeah, we've done some reporting on this, and again, kudos to, I believe it's Nick Minock who has done the reporting on this as well locally. I'm only now beginning to see other major networks begin to cover it, namely Fox. I haven't seen whether or not CNN or the other mainstream broadcasts are willing to report on this story, because it's definitely disturbing. We're seeing now multiple warnings from the police to the prosecutor's office saying you cannot do this. This man has committed multiple crimes on multiple occasions. If you let him out again, he will do something worse. And he did. Where is the outrage? And I'd like to know that, particularly in this state.
So full circle. Do you think this is because they hate Trump that they won't report stories that reflect poorly? This guy was an Obama department prosecutor. He went to West Point, by the way, Descano. Yeah. So he's a smart guy. He's a military veteran, but he's an ideologue. We don't need prosecute. Do you think that this story gets suppressed because it might make Trump look okay?
Yeah, I know. I mean, because it definitely confirms what a lot of people believe, which is they have a lot of concerns when you let in, 9-10 million illegal immigrants, aliens into this country who haven't been vetted. And what is a lot of them have actually committed crimes and they're on the loose. And if they're out there, you can't mention that because it will make the president look bad.
And there was a detainer. Detainers only exist for people who are considered dangerous threats to the community. I don't understand anyone not calling up ICE and saying, take this guy off our hands. Vic Mattis, follow him at Victorino Mattis on X. Listen to the new Getting Hammered. Get ready to get your Morocco map out. Thank you, Vic. Remember, Best Hot Grill, Best Hot Grill, Best Hot Grill. And I'll tell you why, because right now Best Hot Grill is doing a special for you that you do not want to miss. Best Hot Grill makes the incredible Solaire infrared grill that heats up in just 3 minutes to searing heat, makes the juiciest grilled food you've ever had. Don't take my word for it. Try it before you buy it with the Solaire Demo Rental Program. For only $47, you can use our infrared demo grill for 2 weekends and the week in between in the comfort of your backyard. Test its hot, fast performance, its versatility with steak. I don't know why you would do it with chicken, pork, veggies, and all. Veggies? Really? Use it with the steak. Get the meat. Your family will enjoy it. Solaire makes it easy. Then you'll get a coupon for $47 off any new Solaire infrared grill. The Solaire Demo Rental Program will convince you why Solaire is truly the best grill you'll ever buy. Learn more about the amazing US-made Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com. That's besthotgrill.com. You can't go wrong. I know Rhett. I know Irene. I have these grills on both East and West Coast. They're amazing. Let me also tell you what I've got. ConsumerCellular.com. And you should too, because you don't want to burn up money. Go to besthotgrill.com. No, don't go to besthotgrill.com. Go to ConsumerCellular.com. Were you not paying attention? Were you just not listening? ConsumerCellular.com. Their phone number is pretty easy to remember, 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454. Remember, my code is Hugh25. That's for me. If you want to switch your cellular phone, it takes about 20 minutes to get off a big cellular phone service. Same service, same tower, same excellent quality, but save a bunch of money. Are you one of those people who love unlimited data plans? Well, if you're over 50, listen, lean in. Pay attention. All right, pay attention. If you're over 50 and you want to save money on your consumer cellular phone bill, call 1-800-411-4454. Go to consumercellular.com/Hugh and say, I want the $50, I want the 50 and older unlimited data line. All right, that's what you want. You can get one or you can get two. Just use my promo code Hugh25. If you get one or two lines, it depends. If you get one line, it's $35 a month. If you get two lines, it's $50 a month. But the thing you want to do is use my name, Hugh, and then say Hugh25, because then you get an additional $5 off a month for 5 months. So, consumercellular.com/Hugh or 1-800-411-4454. Now, Donald Trump, because Cuba, pay attention to this, please. Really pay attention to this. Cut number 10.
Well, Cuba's doing very badly. They're failing. Cuba right now is, to put it mildly, a failing nation. And I've been hearing about Cuba. I said before, since I'm a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba, and everybody wanted to change. And I can see that happening. Marco Rubio is dealing on it, and at a very high level. And, you know, they have no money, they have no oil, they have no food. And it's really right now a nation in deep trouble, and they want our help.
They want our help? We will give help. I'm sure Mr. Diaz can go to, send him to the Soviet Union, whatever is left of it. He can go next to the Assad bunker in Moscow, go to China. There's no Venezuela out for you anymore, Mr. Diaz. All your people, the only thing you sold were Cuban security troops. Nobody wants them anymore. Get out. Get out and let your people thrive. Cuba will be amazing in 5 years if the communists just leave. Finally, Condi Rice today laid it out. Why are we blowing up Iranian ships in international waters? Because we're at war. Condoleezza Rice on Fox News this morning, cut number 9.
And if you ask people about Iraq, what was the source of many of our casualties in Iraq, you'll get estimates as high as 75 or 80% of them were due to Iranian-made roadside bombs. And so they've been at war for us a long time. They also have developed the military capability to have reach outside of the boundaries of Iran, including Hezbollah and Hamas, which they both arm and equip and continue to arm and equip.
And one more cut, our new DHS Secretary Designate, Senator Markwayne Mullin, cut number 16.
I was excited. I mean,
when you saw his name calling.
Well, it came from the White House, so it came from the switchboard. But I was excited. The president, first of all, the president, I have a really good relationship. We talk all the time, anyways. I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the call today, but super excited. And I'm more excited about just ready to get started. There's a lot of work we can do to get Department of Homeland Security working, working for the American people. The Department of Homeland Security has a very broad jurisdiction, and
they have 260,000 employees. They're supposed to keep us safe. They're supposed to do your bags at the airport, yes, but they're supposed to stop Hezbollah and Hamas before they get into the country. They're supposed to finish the border wall. They're supposed to do a lot of things, and I think Markwayne Mullin's going to get them done. Good choice by President Trump. Joined by Josh Koschauer, editor-in-chief of Jewish Insider. Josh, Iran has fired 8 salvos of missiles at Israel today. Hezbollah has wounded at least 2 Israeli soldiers operating in southern Lebanon as the offensive begins in earnest into Lebanon to eradicate Hezbollah. So we're in the middle of a very serious time, and things go wrong in a hurry. 6 American service members have lost their lives. I am not going to make light of war at all, but I want to ask you about whether or not you think President Trump's Iran war could end up being the Goldilocks war. Not too little, which was 1991. We stopped in Kuwait. We didn't go to Baghdad. Not too much, which was 2003. We went to Baghdad and we never left. But just right. Do you think that's possible, a Goldilocks result?
Well, I think we have a long way to go to really answer that question. Look, I think this is the playbook that Trump likes. Very decisive strikes that take out leaders. In Venezuela, it was Maduro. In the first 24 hours of the Iran operation, it was the Ayatollah. And I think the way things are going so far, I think it's pretty safe to say that the threat that Iran is going to pose in the region or through its proxies is going to be vastly diminished after, however this lasts, after this operation is finished. The bigger question and the unanswered question is, what is the leadership of Iran going to look like? Is the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, still going to remain in power after this is over? Is there going to be any semblance of democracy? Hugh, I'm skeptical that without boots on the ground, without any efforts at, dare I say, nation building, it's going to be hard to shape the future Iranian regime in a more favorable way towards U.S. interests. That said, I don't think you need to get to that point to really achieve a whole lot as part of this military operation. So I think a lot of known unknowns, as Don Rumsfeld liked to say, but I think early indicators are that the U.S. and Israel are both achieving a lot of their main missions.
All right, now I want to switch subjects on you, Josh. I am loath to talk about fringe commentary, left or right, because it just is fringe. And when you talk about clickbait, you add to the clicks. That's been my theory for 35 years in this business. Tucker Carlson, however, today attacked Chabad. I know Chabad rabbis. Chabad members are friends of mine. They are a good Jewish group that does good work and support Judaism all over the world. They've been attacked in Mumbai by terrorists. They've been attacked as recently as December at Bondi Beach by terrorists, by Islamists. And Tucker, whether he knew it or not, put a circle on their back today. What did you think about that? And are you doing a story about Chabad to explain it to Americans?
Yeah, we have a story up at Jewish Insider, and it sadly, Hugh, it doesn't come as a surprise. Tucker Carlson has been mainlining pretty darn anti-Semitic rhetoric on his show. It's gotten worse and worse over time, and now he's going after a very mainstream Jewish denomination that is full of love and is, anyone who's been to a Chabad service or knows Chabad emissaries knows how warm they are and how much they care about Judaism and spreading it to other Jews across the country and the world. In fact, they have outposts in some of the, in capitals of the world where there just aren't many Jews. So Jews, when they travel or when they're on the road, they can celebrate their Jewish faith. So the fact that, it's a very sinister, I don't know what he's getting at, but if you look at what Tucker's rhetoric has been like, and you look at that interview he did with Huckabee and a lot of the stuff that he mainlines on his podcast, it's downright in the sewer. And it's kind of you haven't heard anti-Semitism like that since Father Coughlin in the 1930s on a radio show. So, it doesn't come as a surprise to me. And you heard Trump today kind of say, I don't know what happened to Tucker Carlson. He's really jumped off the deep end.
Do you think he actually knows that Chabad, it's sort of like Catholic focus. I know Chabad from their university towns. They usually go to university towns and open up a Chabad house like the Hillel house, and they're in places like Mumbai. It's the craziest thing to put a target on them.
Yeah, it's dangerous too, as you mentioned, Hugh, that there was a terrorist attack in Australia in Bondi Beach, where a crazed terrorist slaughtered 15 participants at a Hanukkah celebration sponsored by Chabad. There's so many crazy people, Hugh, as you know, online, and I hate to give them attention too. Like, these are trolls. These are people who don't have as much of a constituency as a lot of people think they do. But sometimes perception becomes reality. If people talk about some of these extremist podcasters, these fringe folks, they end up kind of creating their own constituency. You're seeing this on the far left. Gavin Newsom and the Senate candidate in Maine are
my gosh,
podcasts that are, no politician would touch them 10 years ago, and now they're going on these podcasts that are, I would argue, are anti-Semitic.
You don't have to argue. It is. Where is Rahm Emanuel and Josh Shapiro today hitting Gavin Newsom for calling Israel an apartheid state, and that we need to rethink our in the middle of a war where Israel has proven to be the best ally we've had since World War II. In the middle of a war, he suggests we cut off funding to Israel. It's ridiculous. It's absurd, and he won't come on this show because he's afraid of going anywhere where he might get a serious question.
Yeah, I mean, the scary reality, I mean, I think it's alarming and scary, but the sources by which under 35-year-olds get news, their social media platforms, certain podcasts, but a lot of these, you get fed these 10-second memes, the propaganda that's often not even, it's coming from outside the United States. It's sometimes coming from our enemies. And that's what a lot of younger people especially are just gorging. And it's not a coincidence that you see extremist views, anti-Semitic views, just through the much higher than with any other generation.
Quick question: do you think it's your job as the editor of a platform devoted to Jewish news to go find a 25 to 30-year-old funny, smart, quick person, give them a podcast, and promote the living daylights out of it?
Yeah, look, I think part of our job is to kind of put good information, good factual journalism, good reporting, and people who can be engaging into the ecosystem. I think that is really the only thing you can do, frankly, Hugh. It's sort of like the Tower of Babel. People are in their own little universes, speaking their own languages, and some of the things that are being said in these mini echo chambers are quite extreme, and would have been, the notion that politicians, leading candidates for president, would have been on these shows and affiliated with these people would have been unthinkable a decade ago, but that's the new reality.
And I know that Aaron McClain just went to work for CBS. That's good news. I'd just like Jewish Insider to find a kid who is going to be able to talk to the kids, because boy, are they getting crap. Always good to talk to Josh Kraushaar. Follow Josh on X at Josh Kraushaar. Follow him at Jewish Insider as well, Josh Kraushaar. President Trump just finished speaking on Iran. Cut number 18, please.
24 ships in 3 days. That's a lot of ships. Their anti-aircraft weapons are gone, so they have no air force, they have no air defense. All of their airplanes are gone. Their communications are gone. Missiles are gone, launches are gone, about 60% and 64% respectively. Other than that, they're doing quite well. I said, what's left? But they're tough, and they want to fight. And they're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal? I said, you're being a little bit late, and we want to fight now more than they do. We've had 47 years, depending on the way you count it, but 47 years of horror with this group. And, when you see somebody walking down the street without their legs, without the arms, whose face is so badly affected and hurt. It mostly came from 95% Soleimani and Iran, and we, other presidents, lived with it. I didn't live with it. And so our people are doing a great job. Again, the greatest military anyone's seen. Thank you.
Well said, Mr. President. Cut number 19.
And yesterday, my administration announced decisive action to help keep down the oil prices, including offering political risk insurance for tankers transiting into the Gulf, as you know, pretty dangerous territory. Further action to reduce pressure on oil is imminent, and the oil seems to have pretty much stabilized. We had it very low, but I had to take this little detour if it's okay with everybody. Scott, it's okay with you? Scott's the one who has to put up with it. He said, you have to do this now? I said, I have to do it, Scott, right? But it's been very strong, and everybody, including Scott, everybody feels we had really no choice. They were gonna hit us if we didn't hit them, because they're crazy. And in the long term, the actions we're taking will dramatically increase the stability of the region and oil prices and stock markets and everything else. You know, we said
we're going to stop him. It's like, these people are crazy. That's going to become his thing. This is Relief Factor. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. This is not crazy. This is smart. I got up the implacable hill yesterday. I was out yesterday, medical procedure. I'm fine. Just one of those things you do when you're 70 and you just do it, and then you're fine the next day. And you might want to sleep in a little bit, but you don't. You get up and you go up the implacable hill and you feel fine because of Relief Factor. I take it every day. I took it in the first hour. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, now on Pluto TV, and wherever there's smart TV, you can find the Salem News Channel. I took it on air. You can watch me do it. It's not something I make up. It's not a recorded ad. It's something I do. Thanks to Mark Davis for sitting in for me yesterday. I'm sure he told you about Relief Factor, or I did. I want you to try it. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief for $19.95, a 3-week starter pack. That's less than $1 a day. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Or head over to their website and find that starter pack there as well at relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. Kick off this hour with Senator Jim Talent, formerly senator from Missouri, currently senior fellow at the Reagan Institute for Peace Through Strength. Senator Talent, welcome. I've asked this question a number of times, so I'm going to ask it to you. 1991, in my view, was the wrong war, too little. And 2003, the Iraq War #2, was too big. Are we going to hit the Goldilocks war here just right?
Yeah.
Given 5 days of
right.
what you've seen.
Yeah, I think so. I think the president and Rubio and Hegseth have been very clear. The point of this war is to defang our ancient adversary, at least 5 decades worth of adversary, Iran, by taking out their ballistic missiles, their drones, and their capacity to produce them. And I'll say also, I think this war is designed to settle 47 years of accounts, during which time they've been attacking. They've been attacking Americans, Americans abroad, American diplomats, American servicemen and women, and American shipping. And you know what, nobody does that to us. Throughout history, we've never tolerated it. And finally, as Tom Cotton said, the butcher's bill is being paid. There's an enormous overmatch there. This is, like I said, it's a turkey shoot. In Missouri, we might say it's like a duck going after a June bug. I mean, it's not a fair fight. We don't want a fair fight, and we're going to achieve all that. Now, I don't believe we're going to get directly involved in anything like regime change, but we are going to enjoy the other benefits of it. The Chinese energy supply line is a lot less secure than it used to be. Hezbollah is a lot less secure in Lebanon than it used to be. Remember, they're tied at the hip with the narco terrorists in the Western Hemisphere. And the world is starting to believe that maybe the Americans are credible again. Hey, can I close by reading a headline from the South China Morning Post?
Oh, please.
Which, as you know, is one of the regime's mouthpieces. Here's the headline. Is the U.S. in decline after Iran strikes? Maybe not, Chinese analysts say.
All right, let me ask you this. When 1991 rolled around, everyone in the post-Soviet world took a look at what we did and said, whoa. After 2003, Gaddafi called up and said, come take everything I've got, don't invade me. What is the impact of this display? And I mean, Israel and the United States together is an intelligence superpower on an exponential basis, and our weaponry is. I just don't know how much of it we've got, and they're being very coy about that. What's the world thinking? That we're running out, or that they don't want to chance it?
Well, it is true that our military and Israel's using our equipment and theirs is defeating an adversary that's using Russian equipment and Chinese technology. And that can't be a good news, any good news for Beijing. You notice that the countries in the region, which have been moving in our direction anyway, are continuing to do that, which gives rise to the possibility of a new equilibrium in the Middle East. We've been talking about that ever since Operation Midnight Hammer. And here's the other thing that the Chinese are not going to like about this. If we can create a new balance of power where the Israelis are the ones who are policing the region at the behest and with the cooperation of the Gulf states, Egypt and Jordan, then we can draw down a lot of our forces in the Middle East. And where do you think we're going to send them? We're going to send them to Indo-PACOM. So no, this is not good news for the aggressors in Beijing.
Tactical win, strategic win thus far. Bad things can happen. It's early. 6 service members have already made the ultimate sacrifice. It could be a lot more, and Israelis are dying on the ground in Lebanon today, and Iran continues to send a fusillade against our allies in Little Sparta, UAE, for example. Let me ask you about the rebuild. They've gone Yosemite Sam, and they've fired off everything at every which way to try and draw the Arab world into this war and put pressure on they're just not very smart in Iran. That's my view, because nobody likes getting blown up, and they fired off everything. But we fired back a lot. Do your former senator, if we wanted to, can John Thune go to the Budget Committee and Speaker Johnson go to the Budget Committee and say, pass me a reconciliation that's defense only. We'll take it to the Armed Services Committee in both houses, Committee of Jurisdictions, then we'll take it to Appropriation, and we'll run it through as a reconciliation and let the Democrats vote against rearming.
Yeah, he could do that, but the basic problem, I don't think, is money. Remember, there's like $130 billion in the big, beautiful bill for defense, and the department has a lot of discretion in how they spend it. The problem is capacity. And if there is something that I worry about, it's running out of interceptors. I don't think it's going to happen in this war, but it is reducing our stockpile, and that's a bad thing. So what we have to do is to rebuild our capacity. On the other hand, there's nothing that's going to produce that faster than a backlog of orders, which I think you're going to see after this. I kind of think we'll see if they do a supplemental. I don't think it'll be by reconciliation. A lot will depend on what the Democrats are willing to do. But if we have to wait for the regular appropriations bill, I think we can. I think the money is there.
Let's talk about capacity, Senator. There are states all over the country with defense buildings in it, and there are a few that have none. Why don't we just subsidize capacity? And I don't know if it's Raytheon Lockheed or Palmer Luckey, whatever he's running or whatever Peter Thiel's running, or if it's Palantir, and just give them the money to build the capacity and say, we want it in 2 years, you guys can do this? Why don't we do that?
Well, we are doing this. I mean, this administration is investing in defense production and the defense industrial base, to include the maritime industrial base, as you know, at an unprecedented level. And 2 years, some of it maybe. I mean, the problem is, again, we have to replace the interceptors in the meantime. But you're talking several years out. I mean, intention can change quickly. And we are intending to build up the defense industrial base, but capability can't. So you can't produce a factory or expand a factory overnight. But I do think the money is there, is the point I was making.
Well, I'm trying to talk about market signal. There might be a lot of money and it might be going through, but I heard the most interesting conversation about the failure of Pentagon procurement and the fact that for decades, this is not a Republican or a Democrat problem, it's a bureaucracy problem. We have not been able to order munitions in anything like, do we need a minister of munitions? It took a full year of World War I's chaos and carnage for Great Britain to set up a ministry of munitions. Do we need a munitions czar?
Yeah, we kind of have one in the Secretary of Defense, or in this administration, The deputy secretary is really in charge of that, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, and he's doing a really good job. You are exactly right. The problem here is, I should step back for a second. We at the Reagan Institute have a National Security Innovation-based report card. We've been putting it out for 5 years now, I think. Former Deputy Secretary Bob Work and I headed a task force about 6 years ago, put out a report. And on the basis of that, we've been assessing every year. And one of the biggest problems is demand clarity. In other words, a consistent demand signal that the market understands is purposeful and is going to be there year after year. And so I think this administration is sending it. I mean, we are buying munitions, but you are right, in the past they weren't. And a big part of the reason for that is that the service chiefs were saving money on munitions in order to be able to invest it in their core weapons platform programs. And there was not strong enough civilian leadership to frankly, just to make them put the money into munitions. Now, Congress would often plus it up, but see, that's not the kind of certain, clear, consistent demand signal that will get the private sector to invest substantially in new capacity.
I agree, and I wonder, you're a student of history, every war teaches a new lesson, like World War II taught us battleships not so good, carriers very, very good. Does this teach us that we need rockets, missiles, and anti-missiles in a way that we've never fully understood before?
Yes, and drones, unmanned.
Drones.
I mean, anybody can see it. I mean, I'm just an educated layman, and I can see it. And we need cheap drones, which is one of the reasons this alliance with Israel is so significant. You notice that the Germans, I don't know if they've confirmed this, but I've been reading reports that they have a $6 billion defense deal with who? With the Israelis, because they develop and adapt technology for military use better than anybody on the planet. I mean, the Ukrainians are good too now on drones. And so I think this alliance is going to pay off. You talk a lot about Golden Dome. We can't do it, I don't think, without the Israelis helping us. And they're going to help us. I mean, the alliance that has emerged, oh yeah, the alliance, because we don't, because of the bureaucracy and the red tape, and they're doing better now, we don't move as quickly as we need to move you. And every Secretary of Defense, every Armed Services Committee, going back to when I went into the Congress, has tried to solve it. Well, if we outsource some of this to the Israelis and we get the technology that way, I don't care.
Neither do I. Get the missiles, get the interceptors, get the drones. Yeah. Jim Talent, former senator from Missouri and from the Reagan Institute, thank you for joining me, Senator. I'm joined now by Seth Mandel of Commentary Magazine. Seth, I've been asking everyone about this war, and how does the president stick the dismount here? What's the best result?
The best result is hard to prove, because the best result really is Iran not being able to drag us into conflicts in the Middle East anymore, and a region free of, Iranian-funded insurgencies and occupations and things like that. But in the near term, I think that you have to look at our Gulf partners. Our Gulf partners, The Economist just reported today that our Gulf partners are telling Trump stay the course, because if he doesn't, then, and he leaves the Iranian regime more or less intact, even without Khamenei, then you've got a sort of dangerous cornered animal over there, and it's their corner, right? They'll be left in the neighborhood with them. They need, at this point, because of everything that we've, as far as we've come, you need to go all the way. So I think that we should look to our Gulf allies. They will show when they are in a position that is comfortable with where Iran ends up. And I don't think we should get out before our regional allies, including Israel, by the way, feel like the mission has accomplished what it needs to accomplish, and there won't be blowback because we left too much of the Iranian regime intact.
It's interesting thinking about it from the perspective of the allies. I hadn't thought of that, Seth. I'm thinking it from the perspective of high school students. When I was a freshman in college, the helicopter left the embassy in Saigon, and it was a disaster. When you're too young to remember 1991 and the absolute devastation wrecked on the Iraqi army on the highway of death, but that was too little. And then Iraq 2003, which is probably in your wheelhouse as a young man, that's too big. So the Goldilocks is what I'm looking for. Not too little, not too big, not a disaster. This isn't World War II. Any idea what it looks like to our youngsters, to people who are in high school and college today? What a victory would look like?
Well, it shouldn't require anything like Iraq. So, that's one thing to avoid. But, again, it's very hard to say what victory looks like. You have complete capitulation by the Iranians, but that's by the Iranian regime, but that's not really happening. Trump wants to be involved in deciding who takes over for Khamenei. I don't know how that's going to go. It depends on the regime that's in power. Victory is really the military aspect of this has gone incredibly well. We expected that it would go well, but it's gone probably even better than expected, more efficient, more effective. But I think then you have to grade it by whether the regime that is left in power at the end of this is materially different from the one that's there now, and that Iran is set on a visibly different course.
All right. Now, in the first Iraq War, we ended up establishing no-fly zones in the north and the south that we patrolled from Kuwait and we enforced. How about a no-launch zone over all of Iraq that is patrolled by everyone in the Middle East jointly? Does that look like victory? Because they can't have these missiles. I don't know why people are so dumb. They cannot have an arsenal of missiles to fire off like Yosemite Sam at everybody that they're mad at today.
Yeah, my sense is that they are that the Israelis and the U.S. are just going around and taking out their launchers, their missile stockpiles, everything they can. And there's been a lot of movement today toward bringing Ukrainian expertise in on drone interceptors. They what happened in the war, in Russia's war with Ukraine, Russia took Iranian Shaheds, right, drones, and just tried to send swarms of them at Ukraine, and Ukraine had to figure out a cost-effective way to intercept them, because you will be bled dry if you use updated missile interceptors. And that's, the question around the Middle East. And it looks like Ukraine is coming to the table, and they're not asking anything unreasonable, for their own side. So I think that what's coming together is a fierce, destructive onslaught against Iranian missiles, missile-producing factories, and the batteries, especially the mobile ones, and possibly a way for the rest of the region to be able to afford whatever it takes, to get through the rest of this until Iran is defeated.
All right, now, Seth, big question. Donald Trump has broken so many people in the 10 years that he's risen and taken over the Republican Party that I sometimes wonder if they'd rather we lose this war than Trump gain a big win. And the Democrats seem to have totally lost their way as a pro-American victory party. And I don't know why. Rahm Emanuel gets it. Others get it. But people like Gavin Newsom go on the Pod Bros and engage in virulent anti-Semitism. What's wrong with the Democrats? 80 years ago, they led the country to worldwide victory.
Yeah, what's wrong with them is that, it's kind of like the tail wagging the dog. They're being led by their base. The progressive base is angry. They're angry about Israel. And, Gavin Newsom, he's not a guy who has any real firm beliefs. He's a weather vane. If you want to see which way the trends are moving on his side of the aisle, you watch him, and those trends are moving in this direction. He's clearly spooked enough to say something incredibly stupid about our allies on the ground in a war during which we're fighting side by side with them. Whatever he might think about Israel otherwise and aid to Israel, the answer should be, we're not talking about this now. Right now, we're in a war, and Israelis are fighting alongside us, and their presence there is, making things safer for us, saving American lives, and making it less costly for America to do this. And so now is not when we're going to have the conversation about cutting them off. But he doesn't. Right. He's just, it's like the war isn't happening to them. They're just ignoring
it. So weird. I need an exit question from you, though, Seth. I try not to. For 35 years, I have not elevated the Alex Joneses and the crazy people of the world, and I don't pay attention to marginal content or left or right. Tucker attacked Chabad today. I know too many Chabad people. I know Chabad rabbis. They're on college campuses. I think he put a target on the back of an organization that was attacked in Mumbai in 2008, at Bondi Beach in December. Do you have any experience with Chabad? Can you explain to people what Chabad is and why it is not? It should not be singled out as a target, and that's what happened today?
It's the core of Chabad is joy. It's they're a Hasidic movement, but they don't require anybody, they don't really tell anybody what to do. And so they get a lot of people, they go to far-flung places where there aren't synagogues and there aren't Jewish schools and institutions, and basically set up shop almost as embassies of the Jews in a way. And through them, if you want to get a kosher meal, you can get, if you want to get, a Friday night a Shabbat meal or a place to go for Shabbat, you seek out Chabad. They're there just to help, no matter what you believe, no matter how religious you are, they're just there to sort of help. So yes, it's ludicrous.
It's ludicrous and it's dangerous. Seth Mandel, thank you. Follow Seth at Seth Mandel. Listen to him on the Commentary Podcast most days. Secretary Hegseth at Central Command today at a press conference, cut number 20.
Iran is hoping that we cannot sustain this, which is a really bad miscalculation for the IRGC and Iran. You see, there's no shortage of American will here. We remember and honor our fallen, those 6 that we will soon welcome at Dover, who gave everything for their country in this mission. We remember them. But we remember them by rededicating ourselves even more fervently to this mission. Our commitment to our mission objectives only increases as our advantages continue to increase. We've got no shortage of munitions. Our stockpiles of defensive and offensive weapons allow us to sustain this campaign as long as we need to. Again, our munition status only increases as our advantage increases. Our capabilities, we have only just begun to fight, and fight decisively. Having a chance to hear from Admiral Cooper. If you think you've seen something, just wait. The amount of combat power that's still flowing, that's still coming, that we'll be able to project over Iran is a multiples of what it currently is right now when you add up our capabilities and those of the Israeli Defense Forces.
All right, here's Admiral Cooper, as promised, the commander of Central Command.
The president gave us another task, to raise or level Iran's ballistic missile industrial base. So we're not just hitting what they have, we're destroying their ability to rebuild. And so as we transition to the next phase of this operation, we will systemically dismantle Iran's missile production capability for the future, and that's absolutely in progress. This is going to take some time, but our forces are well supplied, as the Secretary said, and we are absolutely ready to prosecute this mission decisively. Our combined joint forces have relentlessly destroyed Iran's air defenses over the past few days, and they've continued hunting for more systems to kill. Our air defenders are operating at the very top of their game. I couldn't be prouder, shoulder to shoulder with our partners in the region in many cases, providing the most integrated air defense network in Middle East history. We are fighting to win.
We are fighting to win, and we are winning. It is Lent. Some of you have asked me, why am I not doing my Food for the Poor campaign? I am. I will roll into it as the news allows. I do want to remind you that in Lent, almsgiving is something Christians do. The best way to do almsgiving that I know of is Food for the Poor, because they deliver to the least and the lost pure water and basic food. They do it throughout Central America, throughout the Caribbean. They've been doing it for decade after decade after decade. Their distribution center is through the churches, both Protestant and Catholic, throughout the region. Trusted partners. Your dollars are tax deductible. You can give any donation from $5 to $500,000 via the banner at the top of hughhewitt.com. Give the gift of water. You can also call in a donation to the Food for the Poor line that is dedicated to my show, 888-359-4673. 888-359-4673, 888-359-4673. They do incredible work, and they do it every year. And during Lent, I just remind people, maybe you didn't make Stations of the Cross, maybe you didn't keep your Lenten resolutions, your 40 days of whatever it is you were going to do. You can always make up for it with almsgiving. Almsgiving done best is that to the poorest and the neediest, and that's what Food for the Poor does and has done for decades. So please head over there. Let me remind you, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. They are a great sponsor of the program. That's why I can do the program from the West Coast, from the East Coast, from the North Coast. I am always available to do the program because Relief Factor just follow me wherever I go and puts together a studio from which I can work. You can now watch from the Relief Factor studio on the Salem News Channel via Samsung TV Plus, channel 1177, or any connected TV out there. We're also on Pluto TV, more to come. So watch if you're not watching. Listen carefully if you are listening, because I'm going to give you the Relief Factor number. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF. The 3-week starter pack is $19.95, a 20. You spend $20, you try it for 3 weeks, and you see if the minor aches and pains that are keeping you from exercising or just feeling good don't go away. I went up the Implacable Hill yesterday after a procedure. Yesterday they had me out cold. That's fine. I was good. A little slow, maybe a little slower than normal. You have to work that stuff out of your system. But Relief Factor makes sure that I don't have the aches and pains that go with it. And so I'm telling you right now, try it. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Ask for the starter pack, $19.95. Or go and get relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Joined by Alaska's great senator, Dan Sullivan. Senator Sullivan, welcome back. I'd like to ask you first a quick procedural question. Do you expect your colleague, Markwayne Mullin, to get confirmed quickly as head of DHS? And if so, how soon is soon?
Yes, Hugh, great to be back on the show. And the answer is yes. Markwayne is a great senator and inspired choice by the president. He's a really good friend of mine. But here's the thing. He has great relationships across the aisle with Democrat senators and in the House as well. So a super well-respected member of the Senate. He's made a huge impact in the Senate. Like I said, I think he's going to get confirmed very quickly. You know, of course, there'll have to be a hearing. But I will say he needs to be confirmed quickly. But also, the Democrats need to stop shutting down Homeland Security. I've seen a lot of government or partial government shutdowns, Hugh. This is the most stupid, ridiculous, and dangerous government shutdown, partial government shutdown I've ever seen. Chuck Schumer's playing games with the safety of the American people. We know there's an increased threat from the Iranians in terms of terrorism, and they've kept DHS shut down. It's ridiculous, and it's got to stop.
I want to remind the audience, Senator Sullivan is also a warrior. He is a Marine. He is retired now, but Colonel Sullivan is with us. And so I want to ask you, as both a Marine and as a senator on armed services, Senator Sullivan, how do you think the war with Iran is going? 1991, too little. We left too little after too little time. 2003, too big. We stayed too long. Are we going to Goldilocks this and get it just right?
I hope so, Hugh. And look, first a shout out, of course, to our brave men and women in our military, their leaders. I chaired a readiness subcommittee hearing with all the top vice chiefs of all the services yesterday. Of course, where our hearts go out to the warriors who have given their lives. But this is all about going after a country that, to be honest, and you know it, you and I have talked about it, they've been at war with us for almost 50 years. The Iranian terrorists have killed and wounded thousands of American service members. Heck, just in 2024, Iran was actively trying to kill then candidate Trump. We were in a hearing on election interference right before the election. I asked the FBI director a point-blank question, are the Iranians still trying to kill President Trump? A month out before the November 2024 election? Answer, yes, Senator, they are. So wow. This terrorist regime has been at war with us for almost 50 years. And as you know, we have needed to bring back deterrence with regard to Iran. During the Biden administration, they could do anything they wanted to Our military, as you know, they bombed or sent missiles and drones at the USS Carney, a destroyer in the Persian Gulf, over 100. Hugh, and Biden never did anything to retaliate. Those days are over, and I think right now the conflict is going well, but it's early days, and there's going to be more challenges, certainly.
Senator, you're chair of readiness of armed services, so you're the perfect guest to ask this. There's a lot of buzz in the media, uninformed as usual, because I don't know anything, nobody knows anything, you would, about our munitions stockpiles.
Yeah.
Do we need a reconciliation, a supplemental, or a quick appropriation in order to restock what we have expended and to build more of what we are finding to be of particular use in the new era of war?
Look, I'm going to leave that request up to the Department of Defense and the President. If there is, we should rapidly move a supplemental with regard to munitions. But Hugh, I've been in 3 briefings, 1 classified, 2 unclassified hearings this past week, and I've asked that question every time. And I think I know the answer is we have enough munitions, certainly, to not only prosecute this conflict with Iran, but to be able to defend our interests in other parts of the world, especially Indo-PACOM. And I asked that of the Undersecretary for Policy, Bridge Colby, in an Armed Services hearing this week. I asked it of all the Vice Service Chiefs. And what I wanted them to say was, hey, if you're a country and you think you're reading about munitions being low and you want to do something aggressive in another part of the world, don't do it. Because we do have the capacity, we do have the capability, and we do have the munitions to defend our interests, including in the Taiwan Strait. So that's a message for Xi Jinping. I asked that directly of some witnesses. So that's the answer. We clearly have the capacity. Do we need to do more in the defense industrial base? Absolutely. And that was a big part of my readiness hearing that I chaired yesterday. We got a long way to go. I think we're getting on it under President Trump. What I particularly like was what he and Secretary Hegseth noted that they're going to put out in terms of the budget, a $1.5 trillion top line. We talked about that in my hearing yesterday. But we have a long way to go on the defense industrial base, but we do have the munitions right now. And if you're a dictatorship or a country that wants to cause trouble because you think we don't have the capability, don't do it, because you'll be surprised we do.
All right, last question, Senator. Alaska would be the front edge of Golden Dome. I know that you've used your position, your seniority, to advance Golden Dome for Alaska and the country. Are we moving fast enough on that?
You know, Hugh, there's so much going on in Alaska. It's unbelievable. Last night, we had another Russian Bear bomber incursion into our AIDs.
Oh.
You know, this doesn't even make the news anymore. They're being so aggressive up in Alaska. We've had 2 Russian Bear bomber incursions with fighters in the last 3 weeks. Our military, which they always do, they do a great job of going out. We had F-22s, F-35s, AWACS, tankers going to intercept these Russians. So once again, they did a great job in my state. So we are on the front lines of this new era of authoritarian aggression with Russia and China in the northern part of America, in the Arctic, in the North Pacific. We're seeing that all the time in Alaska. But Alaska, you mentioned it, Hugh, we're also the cornerstone of missile defense for the country. All the ground-based missile interceptors that we have protecting America, with the exception of 4 in California, they're all in Alaska. All the big radar systems that track incoming ballistic missiles are in Alaska. So, but what the Golden Dome does, it's going to build out that system, and it's going to integrate it with a space-based system in terms of tracking and space-based interceptors. We had a down payment of $25 billion for that in the budget reconciliation bill. The president's provided great leadership. Senator Kramer and I got legislation in the NDAA this year to kind of put into law the Golden Dome initiative. But we need to accelerate it more. There's a lot more work to do. So to answer your question, a good start, but we need to accelerate it because it's a really important initiative, especially during a dangerous time.
Senator Dan Sullivan, thank you for joining me on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Here's Trey Yanks from Fox News on the war, cut number 11.
Very confident so far with the momentum in the conflict. And I want to just read a message that I got from a source on the way here that indicates a little bit more about where we're at in this conflict. And they say that this morning, approximately 90 Israeli Air Force fighter jets completed the 12th wave of strikes in Tehran. This military official goes on to say during that attack, approximately 40 targets were struck with around 200 munitions. This is going to keep up. This pace is going to keep up, according to officials here and in the U.S. that we're talking to. And given the fact that there is this historic cooperation between the United States and Israel, they're able to put pressure on the Iranian regime that this regime has not seen before. And despite the fact that they have this mosaic defense system and they can basically splinter the IRGC to continue launching attacks, it becomes incredibly difficult to do so once the Americans and the Israelis control the skies.
You know, what's
over
getting
the country.
splintered is the IRGC, but not the GOP. Here's Harry Enton on CNN talking about the GOP and Donald Trump. Cut number 12.
Republicans love Donald Trump more than any president's own party supporters loved him at this particular point. Just take a look here. Okay, own party supporters, 21st century presidents, own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seen the war off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
And all I wanted to play that for is I'm so tired of people telling me that Trump is losing MAGA. Trump is MAGA. He's not losing MAGA. That's the stupidest thing I hear. Let me close by reminding you it is Lent. I want to remind everyone I'm running my Food for the Poor campaign, which I do every Lent to make it easy for you to give alms. If you are a Christian and you observe Lent, you can do that at HughHewitt.com. The banner for the Food for the Poor campaign is at the very top. Even a Steelers fan can find it. $5, $50, $500, $5,000, $500,000. It's a very dedicated website that has got complete security. You can donate via the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call Food for the Poor at 888-359-355. No. Oh, it's 855. I'm sorry. 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. I know it can be sometimes, I do numbers again and again and again because I listen to podcasts and they say you can subscribe or get text from us and they run through the number too fast. 855-359-4673. But the best thing to do is go to HughHewitt.com. Stay tuned to the Salem News Channel over at HughHewitt.com. It's the banner at the very top. Give the gift of water this Lent. Go find that banner at HughHewitt.com. Stay tuned to the Salem News Channel on Pluto TV and wherever there's a smart TV near you or on this radio station.